Just
Hello?
recording. So, all right, this is cool. This is very exciting. My name is Tom. I'm from Norway actually, but I'm moving here. I'm setting up business here in Austin. And actually, 2 weeks ago, I did the permanent move, the one-way ticket to Texas. So, yeah, there you go.
You just dove into it.
So I got my business running over here. It's called Burley Consulting. And my background is from newspaper production, basically, both web and mainly print. For the last 10 years, I've been mainly doing teaching, working as a certified instructor in InDesign and also in Illustrator, Photoshop, and Acrobat. So at this point, I'm doing contract work for course centers here in town, like Lumenbright, and hopefully others will join that list. And also I'm doing my own classes, and my favorite pastime would be to actually let my clients want me to come out there and look at their templates and see if we can improve them and tailor the courses, to boost the efficiency and creativity at the place where people work. That's my favorite. So so much for the commercial. So if should I speak louder? Okay, I can do that. I can do that. And please, I'm going to do a presentation. It's going to last, how much is it, like 3 hours? No, 2 hours? 2 hours, yeah. So, and there's a lot of information. I'm going to try to keep up the pace here, but please feel free to interrupt me or ask questions or comments. What we're going to cover is so new. There was a new version like a week ago. So things happen all the time. Things change all the time. And if you have views on what I'm presenting here or questions or anything, feel free to just raise your hand and say what you have to say. That's the way these meetings sometimes work, and it could be very productive. So that's it. Yeah, I've got these weird-looking books over here. These are my latest book project because I'm also a textbook author. And these were published this summer in Norway, and it's actually textbooks for high schools. I want to teach young people how to become IT service people in companies and in organizations. So it's actually a topic in like a section in the high school you can choose, and there were no textbooks, so now we have a few textbooks in that topic. So I'm a co-writer, and I also did the design and the graphic production of those two books. All right. So what are we going to talk about? We are going to talk about InDesign when we basically don't want to print it. We might have printed, produced something that is going to the print shop, and we want to repurpose that content. Or what is becoming more and more usual actually is that you skip that whole part and you just start from scratch in InDesign and you create an interactive publication. And it could be, the number of blue circles here in my presentation is growing all the time because there are new functions and new methods of means of publication interactively here. And this is a very exciting world to be in. But of course, like I said, it's changing all the time. So what I'm saying today might have changed next week. And certainly a week ago, we got an update to InDesign CC 2015, and it changed a lot. So I had to change my presentation accordingly. So let's hope it's still working. So what we are going to try to cover today within the time frame is basically this part. The tablet and phones it's called the DPS, and it's still called the DPS, but it used to be the digital publishing suite. Now it's a new product that also is called DPS, and that's the digital publishing system. No, what is it? Yeah, yeah, something like that. I think it's a system, actually. But anyway, they're trying to confuse us by retaining the three-letter abbreviations the way they were. But it's actually a new system, and I'm going to try to compare the old one with the new one, so you get to know what was there before and what's going to happen with it, and what's new and why did they change it. So that's one topic I'm trying to cover. The other topic has to do with EPUBs and eBooks. And of course, don't expect to learn how to make eBooks today because it's a huge topic that requires a lot of information. But I want to venture into that area where we have the reflowing eBooks. You know, I have a Nook here, traditional kind of ebook reader where you have the reader basically decides the typography. You can change the font, you can change the size, and whoever is publishing the book only have to supply the contents and the structure. But on the other hand, we have the what is called, it's popularly called the FXL, is fixed layout. It should be the other way, I guess. No, I think it's right. I'm trying to get this correct, but if it's not, I apologize in advance. But it's fixed layout EPUB, which is kind of contradiction in terms because we're used to ebooks being flexible and they will adjust to any screen. You can read them on small screen, big screen, horizontally, vertically, and the reader can choose how to view them. But of course, if you want to make like a children's book, maybe with a lot of illustration, art book, cookbook, something like that, you might want to, like designers always have been wanted to do, is to decide how the page is going to look on the reader's screen. So this is exciting, and InDesign supports both. And I really want to look into that, how different methods of handling those files inside InDesign. All right, so, and there are brand new features that came with the 2015 version of the Creative Cloud, InDesign Creative Cloud. And one of them is a little button that suddenly appeared up there in the top of the screen. It's called Publish Online. What does that mean? What can that do for us? So, so let's try to answer that as well. And if time permits, and I have a, creepy feeling we're not going to have too much time left, but there are some other new cool things in the new version of InDesign, and if time permits, I will try to cover a few of those as well. So, without further ado, I want to go on with my topic, but I don't know how many of you actually use InDesign. Can I see a brave hand here? It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's more than 50%. All right, how many have updated to the latest version at all? You have. Okay. Half of the InDesign users are using the latest version. Have you noticed, for the first time in history, when you install the newest version of InDesign, it removes all the old ones from your computer? It's never happened before.
Oh, is that right? With Photoshop.
Yeah, it does Photoshop. I think Illustrator actually retains the 2014 version.
Adobe Acrobat does that as well. You cannot.
Well, Acrobat has been like that for a long time because they conflict. They can't really work with more than one version, which is very awkward actually, especially when we're teaching Acrobat because you want to have access to all the versions. And they snuck it in here, and normally that would probably not be a big problem, but when they at the same time remove the support for the old digital publishing suite, and you can't find it anywhere, it's really not there. Of course, what you want to know is, where did 2014 go, and of course, if you did upgrade without keeping the old one, how can I get the old one back? So that's the first little topic I want to cover, which is more like a user tip or something, But this is what you are going to see. Whenever you go in and update, you are updating to InDesign CC 2015. And what they don't tell you is that they have added this little, very grayed out little thing here, advanced options. And if you click on it, you see there's two options. One is import previous settings and preferences, which is cool that it's there. Yeah, well, how advanced can it be? But the other one is this: remove old versions, and it is checked by default. There's a question or comment?
Yeah, when I update, I don't get those pop-up menus that you're looking at.
Oh, this is not a. This is the Creative Cloud app on
Well,
your.
I'm talking about Creative Cloud.
Is your Creative Cloud app that you have up there, top right? You have a little symbol up there.
Those.
Okay,
So I
but
don't get those messages at all.
you just say yes to everything.
I don't see, it doesn't even ask me. It just starts updating.
Well, I think you can. Let me just show you what the next step will be. Because if you didn't know about this, and nobody basically did, and of course, even if you see the advanced option, we would even think about clicking, and it says remove old versions. You need to uncheck that thing to keep your 2014 version still on your computer, and they were perfectly side by side. And of course, if you're in the middle of a project producing with the old DPS system, suddenly your tools are gone and you can't work it anymore.
That would be a real good tip for the Facebook group.
Right. I can do that over the weekend. I'll put it out there. So, and I can even, put these little screenshots in there. But anyway, so this is, as you now know what's going to happen, you can go here and prevent it. So if you want to retain the old version. But what if you already did it and it's gone? You use the same little app to access the previous versions of InDesign. And you do this on a Windows computer, you do it here in this app, and this is the one I've been making the screenshots of, as you can see. So this is the FreeFloating Creative Cloud app on the Windows. It looks I think identical on the Mac, but it pops out of that little thing on the top right, a little menu on the top right. You just click the symbol and there you go. So this is a cool app, and you can do, there's more and more things they add to the Creative Cloud. Now it's stock photos and illustrations, and community. There's a lot of things you can do here. But what you want to do is go to the apps section here, and it will show you what apps you have installed, and all the ones that you have not installed, but you can install if you are a full, if you subscribe to the full package, you can install all those programs, which is fabulous, actually. So sometimes I install a program just to take a look at it, and then if I'm not using it, I just uninstall it again, But where can I find the old versions? There's actually a little thing here, find additional apps, and it says previous versions. And if you click that one, you get a menu, which is interesting, but you have to go all the way down here to actually view previous versions. You have to click this one. And I think they really good job at hiding that option. I think it's very clear they do not want us to use anything but the most recent version, which makes sense, but for a number of other reasons, could have to do with your workflow, or the file formats or something like that, or your colleagues and customers and that use a particular version, and the whole workflow is based on that. They shouldn't. Honestly, they shouldn't force us to uninstall the old versions. Another question?
I just clicked on previous versions and nothing happened.
Yeah. It depends on a lot of things. Why sometimes nothing happens. I'm not sure how long you've been using that computer and how many previous versions you have, how long you've been a subscriber to the Creative Cloud. And we can look into that after if you want, because there could be a lot of, and what you will find here is that the list, what you should see is a list of programs that you actually have previous versions, access to previous versions. And you can go down here, and here I can go here and choose to install. I can install CS6, I can install CC, I can install CC 2014, So that's, at least that's the way it's supposed to work, that you can go in here, but you have to click here once, like I said, click on the other item on that menu, and then these little install buttons will actually give you access to. I'm not sure if the list will be that long, I've been a subscriber for a long, long time, so I have had access to all these versions over time. I'm not sure if they will be available if you like just started your subscription. I'm not familiar with that, but that is the way. That's how you do it. You go in here, and I didn't know, so I had to do this. I had to find out how to get my good old, very old is my almost 8-9 months old. The version that they threw out. But anyway, that's the way you do it, and that will be my first step, to make sure you have access to the old DPS tools. All right, any questions or comments at that point? Because this is just to warm up here. All right. So what I'm going to do now is try to show you a couple of apps that have been created with the new DPS system, the DPS solution. Digital Publishing Solution. That's the S. Yeah, I knew it will come to my mind again. So there are, and this system has only been available about a week out of beta. It's been in the beta version for a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, I think. But there are already apps out there that were created using the new DPS 2015 system. And since I'm on a Windows 8 computer at this point, I do have some apps here that have been downloaded and they end up here on my start screen. So here is a magazine called Gather. It's like food lifestyle magazine, and this is what the apps will look like in the new interface that's being created when you create your magazine apps from the DPS 2015 system. You get a main menu up here. I had people refer to this type of menu, the 3 lines, as the hamburger. Yeah. I like that name. And of course, it's very clean and refreshing. You have the logo up there. You choose, of course, you as a publisher choose what to display up there. You get a main menu. I'm going to show you how that is built. Pretty easy. And then the display itself is filled with what they refer to as cards. That's a new item in the DPS system. It's cards. So there's a lot of new terms here. It's cards, it's collections, and there's articles, and there's a lot of terms they are using. But I can go in here and actually browse previous issues of the print magazine here, and I can go in. And as you may notice, sometimes you get a little circle that indicates that it's downloading the contents. But with the old DPS system, you will have to go to your library and click on a particular edition and then download it explicitly. You'll have to, I want this. In this case, you can just make your way. You can click your way through the publication, and it will download as necessary the contents that you're clicking on. So these are cards, consists of text and images, and they will lead to, obviously, to other kinds of information that you can read and enjoy on your, on your tablet, on your phone, or in the case if you're using a Windows computer, you can also use your laptop for, like I'm doing right now. So some of these, excuse me?
Can you use it like on a Kindle reader?
That is the question is, what kind of other readers, like Kindle readers? I haven't tried it. This is very, very new. I know that you need, what Adobe has been doing, they have made a pre-flight app that is only going to be available on Windows, Android, and iOS. What that means, I have no idea. Whether you can, yeah. So, I think you need the Kindle Fire or something like that. It's running on Android, isn't it? Or I don't even know. But
just an explanation. So that what we see over there, all that was made on InDesign?
Yeah. Well, no. That is not for me to know, because the contents of the DP, and that is what I'm going to cover in a minute. But it's a very good question. Does all these contents come from InDesign? Most probably not. Because there are several ways now to move contents from your source and into the app. And I think the role of InDesign within the new DPS system is toned down. And you can add HTML articles in here, and you can use a lot of other means. There is a reference to that you're supposed to be able to use PowerPoint to create contents. Let's hope that doesn't happen, you know, like one of the first days. But anyway, it's very cool. I can tap here. I have a touch screen too, so I can actually use the. Of course, you don't see what I'm doing, but I can use my fingers here on my screen and do everything that I want to do. So this is one app. I have another one, which is made by Adobe here. It's called Create Magazine. I just searched for these on the Windows. I haven't searched for these apps on my iPad or on the Mac or anything like that. This is an app. This is an app created by the DPS 2015, and this is Adobe themselves who have created this one. And again, you can see the cards. And this is for you as a publisher to decide how large they should be, what kind of pattern they should be, other ones that are more important than others, and you can actually create this, the user experience. That's what they're all talking about. You know, the user experience should be more user-friendly and more appealing, you know, and you just click your way through here. And you can, as you can see, I can go downwards. That's the same as the old DPS. You read the stories downwards, and you can go over here to the thing that disappeared here, the little arrow, and you can move to the next article. So I can actually go over here and move to the sideways to the next article, and each article reads downwards. I have a distinct feeling that the article we're viewing now is in HTML because it will adjust to the screen size of the screen, and you can use CSS here extensively to make even the typography change. If you have a small screen like an iPhone or something, or a bigger one, or a huge.
Are those pictures responsive, or will they collapse down on a mobile device?
Well, it is, as long as the contents is based on HTML, it's responsive, yeah, and they will scale down, and they will, one thing is, I'm gonna move on to that in a little while, but the old DPS system lets you have a vertical and horizontal layout at the same time. They cancel that, you know, you have to choose. Your app will be either vertical or horizontal, which is a lot of people will probably think it's a drag. But anyway, these are just two examples. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you first.
I just wanted to ask, so unless I missed something, was so how does like Creative Magazine or the DPS, which you just showed us before, the other one, how does issue ISSU.com, how do they play against each other? Because one of the things that we're doing is, one of the reasons I'm here is we're launching Black Fashion Magazine, and so we wanted to do it print-wise, the print version and the digital, and right now we're using ISSU. But now I'm saying this.
Yeah. The short answer to that question is I'm not sure if DPS 2015 necessarily is the best solution for you, but I can assure you that you are in the bull's eye of the target group that Adobe are, you know, is talking about when they talk about this. So at least I would check it out. Okay. So there's more out there, and I'm not going to do them all. There's a few apps here that, well, they don't really have all those interesting names. This City Grand Austin is looking interesting. It's supposedly made with the same system, but it has a little different look and feel. So I'm not sure exactly how they have accomplished that, but I think this looks cool, and I would very much like to get in touch. Well, I will get in touch with the guys who actually made this, and some of you may know. Maybe you're here.
I have a question about the basic concepts of app versus EPUB versus
Yeah.
website. Can you just say a few words about what's online, what's offline, what you have to download and install?
Well, okay, so it is a big question. I cannot give a very good short answer. I think. What is an app? What is a eBook, what is this and what is that. These are apps in the sense that depending on what the publisher wants, you can actually purchase them in an app store on all those three platforms.
Install it on your device.
And you install a little app, and new contents will be made available to you as you go along. It can be free,
So you
it can
only
be
use the
subscription.
app, you don't open a web browser.
You do not open a web browser. This is all inside the app, and it's all based on the digital publishing solution. All right.
Can I produce these on my own and publish them, or do I have to pay a publishing service to make them available?
No, the question is, I don't know what it costs explicitly. I've asked Adobe and I never got an answer. I just went through the channel. I mean, on the web page, you can send a request, and they should be in touch with you and give you an offer, and all I know is 30-day free trial, which I'm using now. That's all I know, and that will probably not allow me to publish anything. But you can test drive it and see if it's something you want. If you notice, this thing here is actually downloading this article, this whole edition as I'm speaking, except it says it's paused. But that's the way it pulls information off the internet, but it's seamless to the user. You don't really have to click download or anything like that. Mm-hmm.
So the app itself is completely standalone.
Yes.
EPUB requires
A reader.
like a reader.
Exactly. Yes, that's correct. I do have. I have been collecting a resource list. I wasn't done with it, but it's several pages. I'm going to make that available, or Donna is going to make that available. And there is your question is very interesting, but David Blattner, he's an InDesign guru and author of a lot of InDesign books. He's written a blog to that very question that you asked. What is an ebook, an app, and DPS, and this and that, and what about PDF? So it's a good question, and sometimes the most important thing is to ask the correct question. Then we can look for the answer.
One other question, if I may.
Yes.
I have worked with a print magazine, like a 40-year publication, and if they have all the PDFs for the last 10 years, could those be put and created as an app? Or is this strictly for original new content?
Old PDFs convert. I don't think you can convert them into this system. If you have the original InDesign files, you may. Yes.
Even from an old InDesign?
Yes, because you can open old files in a newer version, and you can try to publish them. There are questions here about screen size and stuff like that. You may need to alter the InDesign documents in different ways. But the cool thing about the InDesign input or way into the system is that you have what they like to call pixel perfect control. You actually have total control over all the elements on the page. Whereas if you use the HTML, way into this, it will be responsive, and you don't have full control anymore. So I think that's the way they have those two completely different approaches to adding contents to this system. So these are just a few samples, and these are all free. At least I haven't paid for them. So you can go out there and search for them. And what I did was basically search for, what did I search for? I think actually the smartest thing to do is to search for, go to Adobe's page, and they have like what they call galleries, with links to their most innovative customers and stuff like that. All right, so that's a little peek into what you can create with this system, and I think it's interesting. But I think it's time to try to. I want to say a few words about the differences between these two systems, and it's digital publishing suite and digital publishing solution. That's the correct words I should use. DPS 2015. What's weird is they are totally different. They're very, very different. But the end result can look very much the same. So it is kind of confusing. So the deal is that you can use the old DPS still with CS6, CC, and CC 2014 versions of InDesign. And that's why you need to actually reinstall this one of these versions if you want to continue working with your files. And so that's one. And the old workflow, that is I'm not going to go too deep into the actual workflow here, but this is the good old thing. You do most of the work inside InDesign. That's the thing about the old DPS system. And that might be the reason they are changing. I'm not sure. So they call it folios. The file format was like .folio. And they are still working, and you can publish them the same way they were published before. And they have not, I'm just saying here it is still being supported. And I have no comments. I have no knowledge about how long that will last.
You talk about the .folio font format.
Yeah.
Is that different than the .INDD?
Yes, very much different. I will talk about that in a moment. So anyway, but the word folio is like what is going to become a publication or an issue inside a publication. So here we go. So the apps you created and the folio files you have created will work with these versions of InDesign. And the workflow is trying to give a little, it's a little, the workflow is like you start creating your pages in InDesign. And you use what is known as the folio builder. It's a panel inside InDesign. It's not there anymore. I mean, it's not there in 2015. That's the big deal. They took it away. But you work with the contents with something called overlay panel, which is adding interactivity to the objects in InDesign. And you can run it, you can test run it on your computer, Mac or PC, while you're creating it, and go back here, stitch it together here, different articles, and change the order of pages and stuff like that here in the folio builder. And then you go back here if you need to make changes. You can actually stay in InDesign and test run everything until you're happy with the result, with the content. You can test the interactivity, all the media files, everything here. And when you're when you're done, and you can actually share it with as many people as you like, as long as they have an Adobe ID. You can share it. It doesn't cost anything. All this is actually included in the InDesign license.
Is that HTML file?
No, this is not. No, this is InDesign. This is very native to InDesign. And it is a special file format that you can, if you want, actually save these files to your local hard drive, but nobody really does that. You save them to an online service, and you can access them immediately from your iPad or iPhone or Android phone, and you can actually share it, and people can review it. I like that part of it because, as you can see, this is missing in the new system. If you want to see what you created, you need to actually create an app and publish it before you can test it. Now you can actually and that came out last Friday, and I didn't get it until Tuesday because that's when I got my alert about the update to 2015. And then I got a new app on my computer, and it's right over here, and it's this one. DPS Preflight, brand new as of this week. DPS Preflight. It's been submitted by Adobe to Apple App Store and to Android Play Store and to Windows Store last Friday. And the only one that's actually come through the system is the Windows version. The Android is not there yet, and the iOS takes forever, as we know, like 6 weeks or something. So, but it will be out there, so that you can test run them without actually publish them to like a great audience. You can publish them to the system, and you can pull it off on your. So far, I can test run them here on my Windows computer, but when that app is available for iOS, I can just log in with the same ID, and I can test run them.
So you can't use them on Mac?
Oh yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can. So, but this particular app, is Windows only. I mean, this particular version, of course, the same app will be available as soon as it gets through the system at Apple. It will be available. So there are other ways of test running your apps because you can actually wire your iPad to a Mac, for instance, and you can just publish it, and you can test run it on the iPad. There are several ways of doing it, but everything will be, or did become, so much easier when we got that app this week.
You use QR codes. That's what you can do with, like, on a Dreamweaver. You can just do a quick button and use your QR code, and they can app on your website.
I'm not sure how QR codes fit into this picture, but I know you can generate QR codes inside InDesign. There is I'm going to look closer at exactly what functions within InDesign are actually supported by the DPS system and not, or I might have completely misunderstood the question. But QR codes is just a QR code generator, and you can turn it into a button if you like. Okay, so DPS 2015 actually works with all the old versions from CS6 on and all the way through the latest one. So, and it's as of this week, because I think this means that it is out of beta and it's actually become a product. Because you used to, I mean, a couple of days ago, you used to have to install this as an optional plugin to InDesign. And it's actually basically one command, an export command, that has been added. But it came with this week's update. And when I reinstalled 2014, that new function was already in there. I didn't have to install anything manually. So I guess CS6 users will get an update alert one of these days. So maybe you got it already, and you will get this support for the system inside all the old versions. And this is different. If you see here, and this is what some of you guys have been wondering about here. You can combine fixed layout content, which I don't want to do this. I want to focus on InDesign here, but I didn't put the PowerPoint logo there, icon there. I didn't. It's not me. You know, death by PowerPoint, isn't that what they say?
Why do you have an issue with the PowerPoint side? Why do you have an issue with the PowerPoint side?
No, it's not PowerPoint's fault that so many presentations are so boring.
Yeah, but it depends.
Exactly. It depends on.
That wasn't good. That would be good for your business card.
Maybe I should put
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've created
But
actual
then-
graphics for
but
like,
then again-
events, in PowerPoint.
Yeah,
And they're phenomenal, but I'm an
Yeah.
artist.
No, I have nothing against PowerPoint. I happen to use it as myself
That was
sometimes.
a good quote.
You can borrow it for your app. Well, anyway, it is in here. I didn't put it in here. It will be possible, most probably then, to include PowerPoint presentations here as fixed layout parts of this system. But this is, of course, what makes people think here. You know, these Dreamweaver, Muse, HTML5, practically any HTML5 editor, I think, could be used to create the contents here. I got another little app. Well, it's not much to show for itself, but I have it right here. Well, you can't hardly read it. These two little apps are like little auxiliary apps. One is HTML article packager. You know, it will actually turn HTML files and the corresponding CSS files and stuff like that into what is known as an article, which will fit into this system. And of course, the editorial media management systems, you know, Drupal, WordPress, and this is actually an Adobe app that is not out yet, or a system. I have no idea. I don't know much about it.
WordPress?
No, this is WordPress.
Yeah, no.
This is Adobe. It's called the Adobe Experience.
Content management by Adobe.
Yes. Yeah. So It's Adobe's, well, it says, it's been quoted in here. I know just as much about that as I know about the support for PowerPoint in
If
here.
you're in the neighborhood, it's hanging out with it. It's WordPress and Groupie Friends over there. It's about to be a game changer out there.
Yeah, but the deal is here for me is that I have a feel. I get a lot of, we don't get, they don't tell us much about their big future plans. But I'm thinking, first of all, they took away the single edition from the old DPS. That was low cost. It was included in the Creative Cloud, so you can publish single editions with this system for free. I mean, it's for free if you already had a Creative Cloud subscription. So they took that away, and they said, why don't you make fixed layout EPUBs instead? Which is not even close to what you can do here. And then they do this, and they also, like I said, they remove the 2014 version from your computer without even asking you. So they basically take this away, even though we know how to get it back, and they say it is still supported. And, but what is InDesign's role going to be here? Who are they aiming this for? I think this is looking more like an enterprise, like if you're a big publishing house. It's not basically for me, because if I ask Adobe, they will say, why don't you make a PDF or a fixed layout EPUB or something like that, which is much easier to handle, and you can just publish it anywhere without asking anybody. So I think this is moving up and a little bit away and into the more enterprise world. That's my guess.
Mean that independent book publishers, writers who have a book that they...
Or you can do it. I asked for the pricing policies, and I haven't got a reply, unfortunately, and they never got back to me in time. But I'm really curious about that. What is the entry level here? Because you will have to obtain a license here, one way or the other, to be able to use it.
I'm gathering that they know you quite well by
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. And we are recording this, and it's going to be online, available online. It will be on the net in a few days. Okay. So, there was a couple of more points here, but you probably already read it. Of course, old InDesign files can be used. You can open old InDesign files and put it into the old InDesign files you're using here and put it into this system. You can just take these same InDesign files and put it into this system. So, and the interactivity is actually the same.
Question.
Yeah.
So does it output to these content management systems, or does it...
No, it's the other way around. All this outputs to this.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the other way around. You can create
So if I have a WordPress website, I can turn it into an app.
You can export, what you can do, you can export an index HTML file here and use that little auxiliary app and pack it, turn it into an article that you can publish inside the new DPS system. So this can be generated from the content management systems, from standalone HTML editors, and the fixed layout. So all this.
Do you anybody use Muse?
I'm trying to learn Muse. Yes, I love it because I'm an Illustrator InDesign guy. So I'm the kind of person that Muse was built for. No coding, just drag and drop. You work very, very similar to that. The user interface of Muse has been inspired by Illustrator and InDesign. It's obvious. Okay. So, and yes, if you have the old folio files, you can actually convert them here. I think they need to be published because I've tried it all week and it doesn't work. So I'm not sure why, but it could be a bug. But anyway, the deal is the folios and the apps you're creating can be organized inside InDesign completely, or you can also use the service online to go further and publish. This is the worst part of the old DPS system, is the management, from a management point of view. It's very awkward to manage people's roles and permissions and what they're supposed to do, what kind of role they're supposed to. This has been awkward. This is what's been killing people. I mean, not literally, but I mean that's what made people back away from the system. It's been very hard to organize. But anyway, and this has become much better. First of all, which I don't like, is that you cannot do this inside InDesign anymore at all. You will have to use the online service to put it all together. So all you use InDesign for is to produce those fixed layout pages that you want to put into the system. But the management of people and users and rights, internal, external users, and what they are supposed to do and be allowed to do inside the system has been much, much easier. And of course, we used to have, or we do still have, the Adobe Content Viewer, which is available for Windows, Mac, all kinds of iPhones and iPads and Android devices, and well, not the Windows Phone, but practically every other portable mobile screen you can carry around has the Adobe Content Viewer, which is if you want to test run your apps or share it with somebody. All they need is an Adobe ID and this viewer on their on their device.
Kind of like Acrobat Reader on steroids.
Yeah, that's not too bad. It has similarities to that of Acrobat Reader, and it's free. You cannot install it as a standalone program on the Mac or a PC, but it is like a standalone app on all the other devices. On a Mac or PC, you need to have InDesign installed, and then you can use it. And of course, this is the program you're using when you can do the folio preview function inside older versions of InDesign, which is wonderful, of course. And you can combine horizontal and vertical orientation, like this app that is conveniently named after this user group. This is the Austin Adobe user group. This is made with the old system, and I can turn it. So, I have like multiple layouts here, and I can go on here, and as long as my creativity and my time permits, you can actually create. You need to create two separate layouts. This is not responsive at all. You have to actually create the two versions of the app. Okay.
Is it responsive for different size viewers?
It will use so-called letterboxing. So if it doesn't fit, it will fill either the short side or the long size with black. Yeah. Known as letterboxing, or pillar boxing, if it's the other way. All right. So, and the file format is .folio, and the terms we use is overlays, folio builder, articles, folio preview. I'm not going to dig all into that because this is obviously going away. Online management happens here at acrobat.com, digitalpublishing.acrobat.com. And yes, you need to stitch it all together and publish online. You cannot do that from inside InDesign anymore. Everything has become easier. This week we got the Windows version of this pre-flight app. Android and iOS versions are submitted to the respective app stores and will be available as soon as they're past those systems. Single orientation only, but you can, if you want, you can actually make the tablet app one orientation and the phone app the other one, if you want. You can split it, but you cannot combine it. You will not be able to turn your device and switch between the vertical and horizontal. And some of the terms are the same, like overlays, and we are going to look into what overlays are in a short while. So those are the same, actually. Those are the same. No change there. What you can do creatively inside InDesign is pretty much the same. But then they use projects and terms like articles, which is something different than an article over here, of course. Would be surprising if it was the same. Apps, they use term collections, they use term cards and layouts. All of these are things you can design. Like each item on those screens I showed you are cards, and you can decide the size of them and whether they should have a picture, text, typography, stuff like that. Layouts is a combination of cards. You can have as many card designs and card and layout as you want, and you can apply that to your collection of articles. This is maybe a little bit confusing, but I'm going to show you in a minute.
Does Adobe offer templates, or is everything developed from a blank page?
For InDesign, no. Everything is like print production. They don't supply templates for that either, unfortunately.
Well, like Microsoft Word would have a resume template.
That's
or,
right.
You know, a magazine template.
And even Microsoft Publisher, which we probably shouldn't name in this company, but it is packed with templates. You know.
Yeah.
And the templates that Adobe supplied, when they passed the best before date sometime around CS4, and then they stopped supplying them. And if you go to, I think it's InDesignSecrets.com that actually have managed to get the rights, they actually make available those old templates, but they have not been updated. But they're still working from CS4. But for this, no. What they do inside the system here that's online, they have like one basic card layout, one card design, one basic layout design, and if you want changes, you need to go in there. Actually, it's not quite true. These cards, they have like 5 or 6 different.
So that's like a template?
It's like a template for the user interface.
Right.
Yeah, but it's easy. It's pretty easy to work with. You know, I'm going to show you very briefly how it works. I cannot go into details here. You know, Colin Fleming is the evangelist for this product over at Adobe. He's put out quite a few cool videos that you can watch about how to work with all these things.
What's your name again?
Colin, C-O-L-I-N, Fleming. And I think if you go to Adobe and search for the DPS and you will click the tutorial or something, I think you will get to his page where he has a lot of information. And of course, the videos are not old, but they're already getting outdated a little bit because there's no mention of this pre-flight thing that you can actually pre-flight your articles before you have actually published them. So anyway, okay, and you go here, publish.adobe.com to organize everything. And I thought we should take a little look, before we venture over there, let's take a little look at what these things look like. So, let me see here, all the way down here. Okay, expired. My password is, well, I'm timed out here. Let me see. So this is the old, and this is the new. Timed out here as well. All in good planning. Okay, so I've just put them here side by side. They usually require a little bit more space, but this is the old DPS system that you go to digitalpublishing.acrobat.com and you can organize your app. This is actually the very same app that I have running here on my iPad. That is organized in this way. And this is the new digital publishing solution, which is on publish.adobe.com. So, of course, to get a little feeling as to what you can do here, here you can organize. These are my stories in the app. These are based on, this is a separate InDesign document. This is a separate InDesign document. Some of them have previews, some of them have not. And we never figured out why some of them don't, because if you use, well, I don't want to be too technical here, but if you generate like a JPEG background, you will get a preview. If you use a PDF as a format as a background, you will not get a preview. So, and they never went around to solve it, which I think they could have done, but obviously they have been working on this new system, so they probably didn't bother. But anyway, this is my vertical layout, and I can switch here to view my horizontal layouts here. You know, it will actually pull. And this is where I can change the order of stories, you know, in the app. Right now I have this Texas Norway thing. It's actually right here. If I can, yeah. So this story doesn't have a preview in the system, but this is the app anyway. And the reason it doesn't is because, you know, everything that's interactive is called an overlay, and everything that is not interactive is being merged to like a static background. And that background could easily be a JPEG, pixels. So the text will actually be pixels. But if you want the users to be able to pinch and zoom in and read the text more clearly, you'll have to choose that. They're actually using PDF technology for the text here in the background. And that's why you don't have the preview. And don't ask me why that is, but that is the reason. So I can go back here and take a look at my, well, I can have all my articles here with all the meta information, the little icons that are going to be displayed and stuff like that. So this is the old way of organizing everything. And you can actually add graphics and resources to each story here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because this system is obviously on its way out. But it's still supported, like they say. So let's take a look at the other one. It has a completely different user interface. And I should probably say at this point, because I have two other little displays here for you, and that would be the two versions of InDesign. So to the left is the 2014 version, and to the right is the recent version. And what you had before is known as the Folio Builder panel. That's where I can actually build my app and go in here, and I can go in here and add articles to each folio. You know, these are the different stories, you know, the articles inside my app. And this is totally analog to what's going on here in the, where did they go? My other app over here. This is it's exact same information. So if I add metadata here in a field here in this online service, and I go back and find the same thing here in InDesign, it will actually be updated. You know, it's stored online automatically. It was a very cool system to work with because it's all stored out there on acrobat.com. And I can also go just up here to the little menu. Well, I have to go back to the folio itself, and you see the little person, little icon here. Means it's been shared. And I can go up here and actually share. And I can just enter the email address to all of you if you want. What you need is download that little content viewer app on your devices and use your Adobe ID, and you will be able to use this app. So that's the way it used to be. So, and if you wonder, over here there's no folio builder at all inside InDesign nowadays. You know, and that's what people started to realize. They had to go back to the 2014 version, and it was gone. Okay, so let's take a look at this, because this is cool. And actually, if you, like I did, I have a 30-day trial. So you can have a 30-day trial per Adobe ID, I guess. But
And how much is it after that?
that's what I asked them.
And you don't-
No, I haven't got a reply yet.
But it doesn't come with Creative Suite.
Yeah.
So, in other words, InDesign has been removed from the Creative Cloud.
No, no. I think they are toning down InDesign's role in the whole system. That's my feeling. I cannot
So it's still
prove
there,
that.
but
It's still there. You know, what I'm referring to now is basically my own sentiments here, because now, before you had this workflow, InDesign was like the core or the hub in the whole system. But now it's just one of many different sources of contents you can put into the system. So if you want to do pixel perfect static, not necessarily static, but fixed layout, of course InDesign would be the best tool. But if you want things that are, adjusting to the screen size and stuff like that, well, anyway. Well, I'm not going to spend too much time in here. I think time is running very, very fast here. So let us just take a look at the project part here, because you need to start what they call a project, which is be it like a settings that will apply to the whole app and has many additions. It could be several additions of your magazine, for instance, inside a project. So I have created two, and you can only work with one at a time, but the cool thing is you can switch between them, which is, I think, a big change from what it used to be. So this is the improvement, you know. So, and this is where I have the most of my articles. And I go down here and take a look at what's inside my app. And you see, I actually published the same story that I used in the old app. I used the cover here. And so these are different stories or articles. They call them articles. So the object type here is article. And for them to display inside the app, I will have to make a collection. And one single article can actually belong to more than one collection. And that is because you can have a lot of content. You might want to group it by subject or by, you know, area, geography, or, you know, so you can actually put, so if you look at these collections, you will see that some of my articles are actually connected to more than one collection. And then for how it's supposed to be displayed, I can create here cards. These are the different elements that you build each menu page out of. And you can go in here and I can select one of these and go in here and edit it, you know, because this is the way I want my important. You can give like priority to the stories. You know, is this important? Is it medium? You know, low, medium, high importance? And you can make rules that I will actually use the card size for, you know, for each element in the UI based on that setting. And I said there were no templates. That is not completely true. There are a few starting points here for how to actually put those user interface elements together, which is good. And you can alter them. If you select one here, you can go in and make all kinds of changes to it. You know, how big it should be. You know, how do you want a picture, not a picture? You can go over here and style it with colors and actually behavior, and you can, you know. So this is the creative part. You know, the creative part is like moved over here. We're not in InDesign anymore. You know, this is when we stitch it all together. And the articles, like I said, can come from several different sources. Okay, so I'm just going to cancel this and go to the last item here, which is layouts. You know, these are the layouts. There's always a default one item is there, like the default layout. Here's a new layout I created, which is, I call it 4-column 3x2. It's like a different combination of these various cards here. And this is how you do it. You know, how do you want these? You create a grid for your app, and you can use like two here. You can use like 2x3 and stuff like that.
You can merge cells.
Yes, and this is and here I even added a little space on each side, you know, and so it's actually a lot of settings. But again, we're not in InDesign. We're in somewhere else. We're online, you know. So let's take a look at see if it's working. It's always exciting to see, because now I'm going to use that DPS pre-flight thing. But what I did in here earlier, that little button up here. Tiny little one up there. That's the wonder. That's the thing that came to life this week.
What does that say?
It says pre-flight, all content, collections, and layouts on device using a pre-flight app created from the DPS app service. It's a long message. What it means is I can use that new app. You know, and if you watch Colin's videos and watch closely, you will see that the icon is there, but it's grayed out through all his presentations because it wasn't there before. And I have done it. You know, I press this button everywhere. I should press it and publish it. And let me see if I can make it work here. So I need to open this app, and I need to log in with my same Adobe ID. And here are my projects. You know, here's the one I was working with over there. So here's the thing, and of course it looks completely different. I can go over here and watch my article. I created this as a vertical, and like I said, you cannot combine them. And of course, the projector here is horizontal, but still it fits. So this is my little app, and look at this. This is like a collection with cards, and I didn't put too much work into it, as you can see, but these are different cards, and I can go here and click, and it will actually start either send me over to a new collection or to a new directly to an article like this. So it's not bad. I mean, it's cool. It's interesting, I think, and you can do a lot of things. And this menu over here is created automatically based on a very special collection that has the name default. Whatever and the default collection is always there. Whatever articles you put into this very special collection, which does not display as a collection, is basically you define what's going to be here on the menu. So all these things you have to know, and you have to learn it. So it's a lot of things to learn. But anyway, I think it's interesting. Some of the interactivity here is retained. If I can find it, I need to go down here to read each story in sequence here. So it's not very much interactivity in here, but this the pan and zoom image. You know, I can pan here. I can zoom, but if I use the scroll wheel to maybe I can. I can pinch it. Of course, I have a. You know, that's one of the overlays that you can do in making InDesign to make images more interesting. Of course, what I should have done is to tell the user that I've actually provided that feature in here. You know, and slideshows. Let me go down here. I think there's one at the end. Here, you can have slideshow. This one actually starts automatically, but I can control it with buttons here, and I can click on it, or I can use my finger. But I can also use my finger and slide here, you know, back and forth to move through those different pictures. And these are hyperlinks, which is another overlay that you can create. And if you click one of them, you will actually be sent to the respective homepage of. These are external links, and there is a browser built into the app, so you don't have to use the. So I can just close it here, and I will go straight back to my app. So that is cool too. All right, so that's the introduction, and I'm almost running out of time. My goodness. Oh yeah, I don't have a clock here, so.
It's 2:40.
All right, let's move on. So, is it making sense at all? Do you get something out of this? Because this is brand new, and I'm a little uncertain about it all. So, but it's cool to know about these things anyway. So, my next thing I want to talk about, because I want to move on a little bit here. I think we have an overview now of what these two things are, and they have insisted on using the same isn't it called TLAs? 3-letter abbreviation. Same TLAs. DPS. All right. So I guess that is to underline that or emphasize that they actually do the same thing, but they do it in a completely different way. So I want to talk about contents now and content creation. And I have this special document that I have created, and I know I used some of this in a presentation almost a year ago. Some of you who were here might remember it. But I've added some cool things to it. So let me see if I can find that document now. Of course, I'm going to use the latest version. And let me see, it should be here on the open recent list. Where is it? Okay, I'll find it. Shouldn't be too hard to find. Here it is. So just take a brief look at the InDesign file, because it is one document where I try to use every interactive function that is available inside InDesign at once, which is pushing it a little bit far, because you cannot see all those interactivity things in one single file. Some of them are supported in the old DPS and the new DPS. Some of them are only supported in PDF, interactive PDFs. Some are actually Flash animations here are only working if you export them to Flash at this point. And buttons, So everything here is these are buttons. You need to change the setup of panels here, like to digital publishing. You get different apps up here. Different panels up here. And if I do the button thing here, you will see that this is a button. This little triangle pointing to the right is it's called Next, and it says go to next state of these logos. It's like you can control a slideshow, like a little And this is actually another kind of interactive object in InDesign, which is called a multi-state object. So inside, this is now, well, it is one object, but the object consists actually of several different states, and I can address those states using buttons or other means. So these are functions that will work in Flash, and some of them may or may not work in the fixed layout EPUB, and some of them may or may not work in the DPS. And if I want to know if there are special functions here that will help me create my DPS, I need to open the Special Overlays panel, which is a panel that only deals with, well, it will only come into effect when you export it either to the old DPS or the new DPS. You use the same overlays panel. And in addition to what I can do in InDesign, normally I can go in here and say that I want it to autoplay or not, can it tap to play and pause? How do I want the crossfades to be and stuff like that? These are settings that's only applied to DPS. But as the other settings here and the buttons and stuff will work with different interactive output formats as well. Okay, so there's a lot of things in here. I'm not going to spend too much time in here, but there is, let me see here. Page 2, I have videos, which you can add to InDesign. You can just use the file place command and select any kind of media file. It could be a sound file or video file. The file formats that are recommended are the ones listed here. If you stick with MP4 for videos and MP3 for audio, they will work on every output format that you can actually export to. But I can actually preview the videos here inside the program. There is sound, but we have muted the sound because there was feedback from this microphone thing. Anyway, there are a few more pages here that actually just try to show a few more other. This is just page transitions. They only apply to PDFs in full screen mode, but they're there, And here I created an animation at the very end. And animations can be played back within InDesign in two different ways. I can do the flash preview. It's a very small panel, but thankfully you can actually expand it. So I can play the animation here inside my, this is a SWF, SWF shortwave file preview. You have up here, you have settings, what kind of flash environment you want to replicate here, So that's the one. But then, which is reasonably new, it came in 2014, you have a totally new preview function, which is the fixed, the EPUB interactivity preview, that's what they call it. So I need to turn this, let me see if I can make this work. And hit play. So, and maybe we didn't even know it was possible, but simple animations will now actually be included in the fixed layout EPUB format. which is cool. I think they use HTML5 to accomplish that, but I don't really care what kind of technology they're using. But I think it's a great for interactive storytelling that you can use, make simple animations now. That is cool. I was somewhat disappointed that my animation here at the top, the one that actually runs around this path, does not work in that preview. So how can I make all this play together? Well, the format that where I can actually review most of those features at the same time is if I export it to an interactive PDF. Because here I actually have, this is a PDF, but it's running Flash animations inside the PDF, okay? So I can click on these little buttons to move to the next slide or to the previous one, like this. I can go here and just, as soon as I hover over that object, it will start animating. I have even created a button here. Well, it goes back to its resting place. I have an on-off button here. So everything here is actually created inside InDesign. And just to mention some other functions that you might have, I can create buttons to hide or show special objects like here. I can click this button and I can hide those panels, and it changes to a button that lets me show those panels, I have hyperlinks in here that will take me to external web pages. You can't really see it, but over here there's a cross-reference. The text here, you see the mouse pointer changes to a hand, so I can actually click to move to the second page. I have an interactive form here as well. So, like I said, I try to use everything in one document and see how it performs. Because the cool thing is you can export this document to DPS, see what works and what's not working. What's working, Flash, what's working. Interactive forms only work in interactive PDFs, which is a wonderful feature. You can actually do a whole presentation just about this. I can submit a form, I can clear the form, I can do everything. Other interactivity things is bookmarks, which are only relevant for PDFs, but these bookmarks have been created in InDesign before I exported the file. And they will, of course, take me to different places inside the, well, it's all on the first page, so nothing much happens. Yeah?
On those forms, do you need to put some code or something?
This form, no. This form is created 100% inside InDesign, but I could have created it 100% inside Acrobat Pro. But it's so much easier to make it, because you can draw the shapes and you can add the text and you can define, what makes these 5 buttons know about each other. So I can only select one of them. You have to give them the same name. But different values, that ties them together. You can do all that in Acrobat, but I think it's easier to do it actually here from InDesign, because you need some tool to design the form itself, And InDesign is better at that than, say, Microsoft Word.
For the animation, you I don't know, put this sphere to follow that.
Yeah, you work with paths in InDesign, so I just drew a path with the pen tool. And you can say, I will animate along this path. If I have a sample, I'm going to show you later how to do it. So let's hope we don't run out of time too soon. Okay, so I've lost completely track of time, so you will have to help me with that. Anyway, this is... Okay. Okay, so this is cool, and I know some of you have seen this before, but anyway, I can click this cross-reference and I can jump to, if you create cross-references in InDesign, they will be updated automatically, like these textbooks, have lots of cross-references, so we don't have to repeat the information too often. But of course, if that page moves, you don't want to manage those page numbers they're referring to, that is handled automatically. Cross-references used to be under the interactive menu in InDesign, which makes sense for engineers because it's a hyperlink basically. But of course, a couple of generations ago, they actually moved it out of there and put it into the text menu because cross-references are just as handy when you're making traditional paper-based publications, of course. But if you are using a cross-reference and you export it to an interactive PDF, they do automatically become clickable, like this one. If I click here, it will take me to page 2. And here's the video, and here's a sound file. Well, you can't hear it because we turned off the sound, but anyway, everything here seems to be working. And if I go to the next page, you see there's no page transitions, because page transitions only work in full screen. So I have to go into full screen, and you will see that there are, in fact, page transitions in effect here. And I just picked a few at random. But these animations do not work simply because I didn't turn them into a flash animation before I exported the PDF. You have to export the animation to a flash file and put that flash file back into InDesign. Then it'll work in an interactive PDF. Okay. So this is just to sample some of the cool things you can do in InDesign, and this goes. So an interactive PDF is probably the file format that will support the highest number of functions. You know. So, and it is a big discussion, referring to that question that came up earlier. You know, the relationship between all the different formats. What's an app? What's a PDF? What's an ebook? You know. And the big question for me is, why do we want fixed layout EPUBs when we have interactive PDFs, which can do much more than, well, at present anyway. There are good reasons. I mean, there are good things to say about the fixed layout format, but the PDF, don't forget the PDFs. Okay, so let's move over here to my next little thing here, and for this purpose I'm going to use the old InDesign. Let me see if I can find my old InDesign here. I think it's over here. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is actually when we are creating these apps using the DPS system, whether it's the old one or the new one, because the interactivity features are, with one exception, they are exactly the same. And you can do exactly the same when it comes to slideshows and stuff like that in the two versions. The reason I want to do it in the old one anyway is because we have this command, which is called Folio Preview up there. So I can actually preview what I'm making as I go. I can actually see it live. As opposed to exporting to an article, go over there and put it into that system and make sure it's working and press preview and go back to the app and test it. And I can hardly think that it will be that much work to preview anything in the future. There must come something. Something must come that's similar to this. Anyway, let me see if I can find my documents here. So when I'm working with folio overlays and trying to make this work, I try to work in smallest file as possible. I mean, few pages, because whenever I select this option here to actually preview the folio, the whole document will be rendered and sent over to this little program. I'm going to start it, by the way, because sometimes it fails if it's not started already. This program called Adobe Content Viewer. It's basically like a tablet or an iPad simulator. So it will actually run here, and InDesign can send content over to this little app, and I can go here and change the view from vertical to, and stuff like that. And I can test all the interactivity as if it were running on an iPad. Okay, so let's see how this works in practice. I will go over here and let me see. Here we are. So first I want to do is to create a little slideshow. And I hope I'm not confusing you now, because I think I went a little bit back and forth. The reason I wanted to show you that special document with all the thinkable interactive features is to try to so you know what InDesign can do on a general basis. In inside InDesign. And only when you output it to certain file formats, the different functions will be, working the way they should. So what I did now is go back to what you can do in the DPS system. And of course, you can create slideshows that run on different files, like PDF, like I just showed you, or I can add functionality to them using the DPS overlay panel. So this is I already created a multi-state object here. I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. And I created buttons over here that will actually have the user go through these, switch to a different, and it addresses this multi-state object by name. You can see up here, you should give them like a good name up here. It will actually be, what's this? Music slideshow, that's what it says. Okay, so this is one already created, but I'm going to create another one over here. And just to make it a little more interesting, because what we're really talking about here is digital storytelling, which is the fun part of it. You know, there's a different way to tell a story than, when you do it like a linear printed kind of thing. You can make it interactive. And here I have like 3 parts of a story, and these are the ones with the picture. They're already grouped into little objects here. So this is one group object. Here's a text frame, and of course here's another grouped object. So what I want to do first is just to align them so they are sitting right on top of each other here, and I'm going to move them over here. I understand what's going on. Okay, so let me just make sure. So now they're sitting right on top of each other. And that's why I wanted to have them separate first, so you can actually see that there used to be 3, well, there are still 3 separate objects. But now they're sitting really on top of each other, and I filled the text frames with white color, paper color, so it shouldn't be too confusing. But anyway, what I do, I just go over here. When I've selected 2 or more objects, I can go in here and just turn it into a MSO, like a multi-state object. And I want to name it. So this is, just call it my story, I could call it a 1, 2, 3 story or something like that. And you see that now I have 3 states. The 3 different objects, even though 2 of them were groups, have now become states inside a multi-state object. And I can view the different ones here. You can actually also edit the contents of each state. You can add content or remove content from each state after you've created the MSO. Okay, so, and I just call it story just for simplicity. But then I want to create these these are actually ordinary text frames. They don't look like it, but they are ordinary text frames. They shaped like circles, and you can see the in port there and the out port there. And they got a white outline, black outline. But they are basically ordinary text frames. So, but any object in InDesign can be turned into a button. So I just select the number 1, and I go here to buttons and forms. There is a nice little button down here in the button panel that says convert to button. And of course I can click it if I really want to, but I'm a little lazy, so I know all I have to do to turn it into a button, I can just go straight here and say what kind of action do I want this button to perform. So I just go here and I say I want this button to go to a state. So I select go to state. And then it asks me, okay, this page actually contains 2 multi-state objects, so he wonders which one do I want to control, and I have to select the other one, the new one I created, not this one over here, that was already there. And what do I want to happen? It says go to state. Well, actually, so it asks me what state in that object do I want to go to? Well, I want number 1, I want to take me to state number 1, plain and simple. So I'm going to repeat that process. I'm going to go over here, select text frame number 2, and say go to state, select the correct object, and select state number 2. And of course, number 3 here. I should basically have named the buttons as well. It's a good habit here to use good names, descriptive. Button number 7, button number 8 is not, they should be like story part 1, story part 2, or something like that. But for now, I'm not going to do that. And this is going to be state number 3. Okay, so in order to test this, I can actually test it. It will run as Flash if I want to. So I could use the Flash preview, but that would not be relevant for the DPS export. So what I want to do to actually test it is to go over here, make sure my app is running there, and just do the folio preview. And unfortunately, it does render the whole document. You cannot preview just the one page. And that's why when I do extensive testing, I tend to go here and work with single pages, so it doesn't have to render all that much. I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. So here it goes. And let's see what happens. I can click number 2, and I can click number 3. And I can click number 1 to move through that story. So I've created 3 buttons that will actually help me. And this is like an iPad simulator. It actually runs it the way it's run. And do you notice, can you see my mouse pointer? It is not changing shape into a hand when I hover over the buttons. Can you explain why that is? Because there is no mouse pointer on an iPad, So it doesn't. So it doesn't change into a. That will be very misleading. If it changed into a hand and you can click it, I can do it like this. I can use my finger here, and actually, because I have a touch screen, so I can actually do it right here.
So this is a hover thing. It's not a.
It's a hover, and there's no hover because there's no mouse. On a Microsoft Surface, it's a little bit different. Yeah.
Transitions, do you choose that fade in, fade out, or just by default?
That is a very good question. Did you hear the question? How did I create the fade in, fade out thing? And that I probably should have showed you, but I completely forgot. What you do here is, that is in the edition that only applies to the DPS. If I want to, for Flash, create a fade in, fade out, I will have to make a little animation for each object to fade in and fade out. But with the DPS, and that's what I love about the DPS, they have these additions they call overlays, the settings, and actually as a default, it is crossfade, 0.5 seconds. So I'm very glad you asked that question because I might have forgot to talk about it. But there's a lot of options here that only applies to the file if you export it to the DPS system. And you can autoplay it, and you can have it loop, and you can do all kinds of things in here. And also with this other one, I can actually tap here. Again, the mouse pointer doesn't change shape, but if I tap it here, you see it changes color just briefly when I tap it, so just to give some feedback that something's actually happening. And that's what you can define in here at the button level. The button here has actually, depending on the appearance, on the action, the normal appearance is a red fill color, but with a click, they call it click when you tap it, it's actually changes colors just briefly there to indicate that something is going on. All right, so that's a little bit about multi-state objects. It's actually fun, it's cool, it's not complicated at all, and it's a good means of doing interactive storytelling. And if I want to try the Flash version of this, you will see that it is similar, but not quite, because what you're missing is the crossfade, like you asked about. It's working, but you don't have the crossfade. And of course, the clicking here to change picture is working, but I cannot use my finger and slide in there to make it change the image. Okay.
So that,
Yeah.
So that file, how you save or how you export?
Oh, okay. How do I export it? And the cool thing is now, since even 2014 version was updated last week, I can actually create a file for both the old DPS and the new DPS from inside the same file. So if I were to work with the old system, I will use the folio builder panel here to create a new folio and set all the options I want for that. Do I want just vertical, just horizontal, or both, or whatever do I want? And I will add this as an article to that folio. Inside of here, I can go into the article, into the folio. Folio is a collection of articles that may become an app. It won't let me go in there, so I'm not going to spend any more time on it. Let's hope it doesn't crash here on me. Looks like it does. Okay, so let me try and cancel that. So and I can, as I built my folio, I can preview the whole folio, or I can move over there to the, and I can go and share it. And as soon as I've uploaded it and uploaded the stories, I can actually go in here and view it inside that old Adobe Content Viewer. So there you go. I think this is basically hanging. So we will have to kill it. It's okay. Okay. So I'm not sure. I see we are running a little out of time. I'm not really surprised, but you know, I was really hoping I could go into that more about eBooks and stuff as well. So maybe I should cut this a little short. I'm not sure. But anyway, there are so many overlays that you can work with in the and some of them are like the one you just saw are regular InDesign function that has added flexibility and added control when you use the overlays panel. This one is DPS only. This is a thing you cannot do in any other not a PDF, not a Flash, not eBook or anything. So what it is, I want this little window here, this little frame to become a window, and I want to put this text inside of it so the user can scroll up and down that text. It's a way to add more text on the page without having all the text to display. You know, you will have to show people that you can actually, that you actually can do it, that there is more text there, but most, especially young people, they click and drag on everything, so they will find it, but old people like myself will need a big sign. It's a little finger that says, press here and drag down, and you can read more, you know. But how do I create it? Well, I can copy or cut it. Let me just cut it for now. I use the edit cut, and I select this frame, and I use the standard InDesign function, paste into. So I'm actually pasting the one text frame inside the other frame that was empty. And I can remove this arrow. That was just for show. And how do I control it? Well, I go here to the my overlays panel, and it is called a scrollable frame. There is an overlay type that's called a scrollable frame that is only available in the system. So yeah, I need to select the frame first, and then I just select the scrollable frame. It's very simple. I turn it on. I say it's going to be vertical only. You understand you can actually scroll either way, but I want vertical only, and I want, you see, the initial position, not the present position because it's like centered. I want it to be the upper left. The upper left should be aligned. And that's all it takes. So I'm going to save my file now because I didn't do that earlier. Let me just create a copy just in case. I end up having so many copies of my file, and I'm a little, have a little problems. I'm a little version control challenge here, but I'd rather have too many copies than lose the one that has all my edits in it. So if I wanted to preview it again, I go up here and do the folio preview. It renders the whole thing. I probably need to jump over here too. So as you add more interactivity to a document like this, of course it will take longer and longer every time it renders. But here we go. And here you see what happens. Now I can, oops, I have to be a little careful. Now I can scroll here inside that frame. And it's vertical because I wanted it to be. It shows the little slide bar there because that was an option. I can turn that on and off as well. And you see I added a little space, a little inset space inside the text frame because I wanted the frames to be the same width so it looks nice. And this is cool, but of course the only thing lacking here is of course the instructions to people who want to know, well, who won't find it themselves. The cool thing is that what you paste inside could be anything. You can actually scroll down the long text, and down there you can have buttons or hyperlinks or even a video, like a little reward to whoever reads to the end of the story, get to see the video, stuff like that. So you can actually, all you have to do is actually, so this overlay can contain other overlays, if you understand. So you just need to group all the objects before you put them into that frame. That's all it takes.
Does the user have the option of expanding the toolbox?
No, they will not. They cannot do that. Because everything that is not interactive is just merged into a flat static background, so you cannot change that. Okay, so that's the overlay. Oh yeah, this is a cool use of. That's something I like because some apps have these. If I go to full screen here, let me see. How cool would it be if you can use all the interactivity features in full screen in InDesign? Then PowerPoint can take a nap. I like these little tabs, and the user can pull them out. That's cool. And you can have like several, and you can make it like a little exploring kind of task to pull out different stories or pictures, from the side. So I created this object. It's very easy to create objects like this in InDesign. You just create a couple of rectangles with round frames, and you merge them together using the Pathfinder panel, and stuff like that. And I just position it here where I want it. And then I need to create the container frame. So this is actually the same usage as before. I just create the frame here that I want this little thing to move inside. And of course I cut the object, edit, cut, and I paste inside. I paste into. And note this, that the position the object had before you cut it out will be retained when you put it inside. So only the tab will show inside the object.
So that's like a little clipping, right?
It's like a clipping mask, yeah. So you work with clipping, frames that clip other objects. You work with that all the time in InDesign. It's very easy. You can put any kind of contents inside any kind of frame. So I have to go here to the overlays panel again and say that this is a scrollable frame. I will do horizontal only, and this time I want to hide the scroll indicators. And I think upper left, was a initial? No, I need to use document position. Document position, that's very important. I want to retain that document position now. Okay, so again, I can't imagine how people want to work with this in the new DPS, because you will have to publish it before you can see the results. So I would probably use the folio preview in 2014. Anyway, and then you can export the same file to an article. That was a question. I never answered that question. But here it goes. Here it is. I can drag it out on it. And of course, if the iPad supported Flash, you could probably click it and it will slide out and slide back in again, because you can do that in Flash, but you cannot do that in DPS because, well, the iPad doesn't support Flash. But maybe sometime in the future we can have it slide out and in.
Do you find using this method better than like doing actual style sheets?
Well, for me, yes, because I don't know style sheets. But I could probably export this to HTML5 and see what happens. I'm not sure. I've never tried. Yeah. Or I could export it to an interactive. Well, No, this is, you know, this. I think this is a very much a DPS only function at this point,
So
but
if I was to export that out to HTML5, I'd use jQuery mobile.
yeah, no, it's DPS overlay functions do not export to HTML5. So you need to use, you need to create it with Flash. You can create it with the animation functions here. And I've seen it done actually several years ago. A little menu thing that was sliding out and in if you clicked on it, or you just hover over it and it slides into position. And when you move the mouse out of it, it slides back. That is Flash functionality. You can use the animation functions in here, and those should actually translate to HTML5 at some point at least. Okay, there's several other things we can do. The way I did the picture that you can pinch and zoom in is even easier to make, because you can take any text frame containing a picture, and this is a very large picture that is just I reduced the size here in InDesign, and I can just go over here and select pan and zoom and look at all the settings. I just turn it on. And I can do the same thing here if I wanted to you know, I can this is like a old panorama. A friend of mine claims he took these pictures when he was young, up there where he grew up in northern Norway, and he posted the single pictures on Facebook. Of course, I just took all those single pictures and merged them into a panorama in Photoshop, you know, and posted it out there. And he was, "What did you do?" That is cool. But I can do the same thing here, just turn it on here. So, and again, as soon as I've done it, I usually hit Control S to save it, and then I go over here and before I preview it, because sometimes it crashes when you preview it. Even though it renders the whole document, the good thing is it will actually give you that page, you know. So in this case, I can sometimes I can do it. Here I can do it. Come on, it's very small. There. Pan and zoom. Actually, instead of using pan and zoom here, I don't know why it's not working. What did I forget? I could use the horizontal the same as I used earlier, the scrollable frame horizontal. I probably should have. But here you can zoom in and out, and you, of course, again, you need to tell people that there is actually more information. I like pictures with a lot of people in it, and it's so cool. You can zoom in and see the details. Remember, this picture is actually 100. Well, it's thousands of pixels each way. So, you know, you can zoom in all the way until you have a 1-to-1 ratio between the pixels and the screen. You know. You will have to create it, unfortunately. All right. There's many. Well, this is, you can have a sequence of pictures. You can slide through. I think I'm going to skip that one. With sound files, you can have play and pause controls, and you can even, if you bother, to make all the different in-betweens here, like a progress bar. When you play certain kind of length of MP3 file, it will show the progress. And from Adobe, we did get all those, well, I'm not going to go there now, but they gave us all these files, assets, you know. This is just one of them. I have several different files you can use, or you can create them yourself. There's a naming conventions when it comes to creating those files, but you can have it work. And the same thing with video. Video playback is pretty straightforward. You basically use the settings here in the media panel, but you do have overlays to add to that a little bit, like autoplay, which I hate, by the way, so please don't use it. But you have to choose whether the video should play in full screen or not. And by the way, if you play the video in full screen, you can have, let's say you have a vertical app, and you play the video in full screen, you can actually turn it and watch the video in horizontal. And when you end the video, you're back in the vertical setting. All right, I'm fast forwarding here a little bit. I can actually pull contents from a web page and have it display inside a frame. So if I go in here, I'm going to do the web content overlay. All I need here is a valid URL like adobe.com and autoplay, which means it will pull it off the net if the device is online and the user will move to this page. It will start pulling it out there, or you need to tap it to, so if I leave this unchecked, you will have to actually tap it to see that. Pretty easy to do, actually. And it is actually a way to, you can use that actually to stream video. You can, this system doesn't support streaming video, but you can use this method actually, or a similar method, to actually embed YouTube videos that will be, being streamed from YouTube as you go. And didn't I say that here? Or did I? Yes. This is the code you need to use right here. And the deal is, if you go to YouTube and you do that embed thing and you copy the URL, these little guys are missing. You will have to add HTTP : before the slashes if they're not there, or else it won't work. I don't know why this is, but I guess every other system will make it work without the HTTP : but here you need actually to insert it manually. And InDesign does actually have a code here called, where is it? Insert, here it goes. If you create a text frame, you actually have, where is that? Object. I just had it. Insert HTML. Why can't I do it? Okay, doesn't matter. Maybe I should not have anything selected. Insert HTML. You can do that, and you can just paste it. Paste this code, paste it in there, and say okay, and it will actually. Not much will happen in InDesign, but when you export it to what did I do? Nothing. Okay, I'm really trying to fast forward here. You can make hyperlinks. There's a hyperlinks panel. It's become very user-friendly now. It had little red and green lights that tells you if the links are valid. But hyperlinks can go to external web pages. If you create a web link overlay for DPS, you will actually have, let me see, you need to select an object. Hyperlink. Well, if you link to an external web page, you can actually choose whether it should display in the built-in browser or to the device's external browser. But more importantly, you can make hyperlinks with these special operators called nav2, like special protocols. I'm not too into, but you see this, you can use this to link to the App Store. But the nav2 is like DPS specific, I think, because you can enter the names of articles. So you can actually make links that will jump to a specific page or position in a different article. Adds a lot to the interaction here. And of course, these are some of the go-to destinations you can define for hyperlink that will actually work in DPS, and the ones that are gray here will not work in DPS. Recently added, you can actually create buttons and hyperlinks that will turn sound on and off, which is good. Okay, I'm getting there. Okay, I said there was one exception, one single overlay type that is not supported in the new DPS, and that is this one. And according to Adobe, nobody likes it and nobody uses it. So, and it is already in the old system only supported on iOS apps, which means you can use the old QuickTime VR. If you remember, you can have like six. It's like if you're inside a cube, 6 sides. You need 6 square images, and you need to name them accordingly using this number. And this little overlay, panorama overlay thing will actually put them together, and you can go like 360 degrees around inside this thing. And the problem is, why is nobody using it? Well, because we don't have those 6 images. It's very, very hard to get a hold of these 6 images. So what I did, just to play around with it, I created 6 square files in Photoshop, and I just filled them with different colors and different patterns. And when you go in there and move around, you get really dizzy, and it's like, well, but it's working, but it's not really all that useful. Okay. So this is the old link page that is outdated. I'm working on a new one with links to all kinds of information that you might find useful here. Of course, I think we are supposed to wrap it up here soon. And well, let me say this. All your questions and comments and discussions we had on the way here, I totally love it, and I think that makes the presentation so much more useful. And personally, I don't mind that we are running short of time, and I'm not blaming you if it sounded like that. But I think this has been great, and I'm not done. I have like a lot of things to say about reflowable eBooks and fixed layout eBooks. So how about part 2? Yeah, and if anybody came here because you only wanted to hear about eBooks, I'm very sorry, because I think we need to close about now. But I think
well, could you do another presentation on eBooks?
And skip the DPS part, go straight to eBooks. Yeah, I would love that actually, and it proves something similar happened last time I was here, and I mean it's not a big surprise, and I don't think it. I mean, this is plenty information. So I'll be happy to come back here and do a special on eBooks. That will be wonderful actually. Let me see, where's my.
I guess if you don't mind, stop the recording then.
Yeah, I just, well, it doesn't matter where I am. Let me see, it should be right here. No, where is it?
And Tom, if you want
Here it is.
start contacting, so if you're interested in that.
Oh,
Are you gonna post that on the Facebook?
just put it on tape. So, so here it is. So, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your patience and your interest. This is